Hi, I'm Paul Dutton with the Emergency Preparedness Network. I'm an emergency consultant, paid professional emergency consultant, and of course, 20 years now as the CERT coordinator and instructor with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and a 10-year veteran of volunteering with the American Red Cross. Now, this is going to be our video now of Fire Evacuations number 2. Now, in our first video, if you haven't watched it, be sure to go back and watch Fire Evacuations 1, Are You Ready? Because in that we talk about pre-evacuating or getting prepared ahead of time. And we talked about us being the guru of preparedness. It took us 2.5 hours to get ready so that you can evacuate in 15 minutes. So be sure to turn that car around, get your grab and go bags ready, get them in the car, okay? Get a grab and go bag for Fido. All right, make sure you take pictures of all the rooms in your house and all the walls in the rooms, your important documents, and be sure to get all your photo albums and pictures loaded up ahead of time. Remember, it's going to take quite some time to get that ready so that you can get out of there. Just finding your wallet, your keys, your glasses, your sunglasses, and your mask these days takes me 15 minutes. So now, that's what we discussed in our first video. Now, in our second video, now you got loaded up, you're ready to go, and now you decide to go. We're going to talk about notifications and things like that. But where do you go? But before we get into that, I want to introduce our special guest speaker today is Jennifer Dutton from the American Red Cross. She's a disaster program specialist there with the San Gabriel Valley Pomona chapter. And she's had a world of experience in just the 5 years that she's been on with the American Red Cross. But more importantly, she's been listening to Dad give classes now since she was age 7. She's also a CERT instructor as I. She is also a program manager and a coordinator with our CERT program and courses almost, 39, 40 classes now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Dutton. Okay, so welcome, Jennifer. This is kind of cool having Dad and my daughter talking here at the same time and bringing her expertise to this film so we can get people prepared. So one of the things people are going to jump in the car now and start driving down the road. And of course, you're always supposed to have 2 routes of evacuation. So always be sure of that in case one's closed off. But where do they go now? How do they find out how they can get to a Red Cross shelter?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We get this a lot with Red Cross, and we recommend that people go onto our website, redcross.org/LA, and you can get the updates about where the closest shelter or evacuation site is located. We'll also put it on our social media accounts, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all Red Cross LA, and you can get the information there of where the shelter or evacuation sites are located.
So that's perfect. But so I'm driving down the road. Obviously, I'm going to have to pull over. My wife or my kid, right, who's obviously better at technology than I am, can start referencing this on their phone.
Yeah, it's okay. all those applications are on your phone or on the computer, and you can utilize any of those. We'll also make sure to blast that information out to all the local news channels, and they will also be advertising those shelter locations as well.
Perfect. I was just going to ask. So they could probably find us on the news as well.
Yes, always.
Right. So, all right. So now they finally get to the shelter. What can they expect? I mean, because a lot of people are, just like my 6 premises thinking it won't happen to me. It won't happen here. It won't be that bad. Okay, well, now it has happened to me. And now I'm driving down the road with my shirt on my back. I barely remember what Paul told me in the video. I loaded up a couple of the photo albums. I got the dog in the back seat. Now what do we expect when we get there?
Well, yeah, so anytime you come to a Red Cross shelter, first off, everyone is welcome, pets are welcome, and all of our shelters do meet ADA requirements. So you'll, park your vehicle, come inside, you'll head to our registration table, you'll sign in with the Red Cross staff there, we'll get your information so we can help to track your recovery process. And then once you're inside, we'll be able to provide you with a cot, blanket, a small, what we call comfort kit. It's basically a toiletry kit that has basic essentials like a toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoo and conditioner, and then 3 square meals a day when you're staying with us in the shelter. And we'll, do our best to accommodate you and what your needs are. We'll try to also provide you with, news information while you stay there as well.
Yeah, it's excellent. I mean, as you well know, in the Woolsey fire, things were changing so fast, and you guys set up 4 or 5 shelters really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
It was really intense. I was actually there the night that the Woolsey fire happened. I helped to open the shelter location at Pierce College. I remember getting a call about 1 o'clock in the morning, heading down there and getting that shelter set up at 2 a.m., with people waiting to get inside. And so it's a lot because again, the Woolsey fire happened faster and moved quicker than anyone was anticipating. So everyone was trying to get what we could together to help our clients.
Yeah. So, and that was crazy because each one of these, they had 4 shelters, I think, at Pierce College. And I know this as well because I was one of the shelter managers to one of them later on and took over from you. And there was 300 or 400 in each one of these shelters. And then there was another one off-site at another high school that had, 300 or 400 as well. So, I mean, suddenly we had 800-900 people looking for shelter because that fire moved so fast.
Easily, yes.
Yeah. That was, to me, it was just an intense to see so many people caught off guard. And again, it's what we talked about in our other video. These wind-driven fires can go 35, 45 miles an hour, and you think you've got minutes or an hour to evacuate, and you only got minutes to get in the car and go. And all these folks, as we've seen them in the shelter, and you certainly have, Jen, because you've worked a lot more than I have, see those same folks sitting in that shelter going, what happened?
Yeah, we recommend to all of our volunteers and clients, as soon as the fire department or the sheriff's department tells you should start to prepare to evacuate, we recommend that you do, because time is absolutely critical. And the more lead time that you have to prepare and to evacuate, the better off and the safer that you will be once that notification to leave finally does come in.
So let's talk about those notifications, because you're right. During the station fire, people got a reverse 911 call on one day, and it was actually incorrect, but people didn't know that. So when they got the reverse 911 call the next day, because I had you and Lisa, my wife, and had the family evacuate. So I was going back to the house and checking, working with the sheriffs for about 5 days, and on the next night, when I was finally going to sit down after 3 days, we got that reverse 911 call. And then a lot of people just didn't take it seriously. So, a lot of times in these kind of situations, there's miscommunication. So, and they think that the sheriffs, and as we did in that area, and I certainly helped too, we went door to door giving those evacuation notices. So when we tell you got to evacuate, you need to. The story is with one of our neighbors on our very street, we knocked on the door in uniform with our deputies and said, hey, you got to evacuate. And he said, gee, can you come back at 8 o'clock in the morning? I'm kind of tired right now. And we're just like wondering, all right, well, this is the kind of person that's going to get caught up and end up in the Red Cross shelter. And thank God you guys are there to help that. But those notifications can come through Nixle. They can come through a reverse 911. They could be on the news, or you may never get one, because the fire may be moving so fast, like on the Woolsey fire. It's like, yeah, it's right there. It's like, I'm not going to wait to be told. We talked about this in our first video. As Jen just said, let's get ready. Let's turn the car around. And if we think we need to leave, let's leave. Yeah. Because the sheriff's department's going to be patrolling these areas. If you're worried about looting and those kind of things, that's what they're there for. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a huge issue. I know in us, when we had to evacuate during the station fire, like we referred to, how it took us 2.5 hours. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was definitely an intense experience. I remember at the time I was in high school, and we were getting ready. We were, trying to get things packed up and, having your parents tell only pack the things that matter the most to you, and having to go through your belongings and figure out what that is. It's kind of a lot when you're that age. But I do remember, we were getting the stuff into the car, and I was up on the roof trying to, keep things hosed down. And I do remember that, we live next to a wash basin. So I remember seeing all the wildlife running down the mountain, trying to flee the fire. And that was definitely, a moment that I'm always going to remember from that process. But, we were starting to pack a few days in advance. So when that warning did come through, we were all ready to go. Yeah.
So I don't know if I made that clear in our last video. I made it look like the fire was 300 yards away and we were now leaving. That wasn't the case. This was on Saturday morning, and we were out of there by 10:30, and the fire really didn't get close to us until about Sunday. So, and of course we had already evacuated, and like you said, pre-evacuated. I know people in Monrovia, the CERT coordinator there, evacuated her family 2.5 days ahead of time in suspect of thinking that fire could get close. Being a CERT coordinator herself, evacuating and getting ready ahead of time. This is our big message. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a Red Cross shelter, and we know what that's like, because I know personally for me, going back and forth to the house and working at the sheriff's and getting a few minutes off to check it to see if the house was still there, with like the station fire, that was traumatic. It was really traumatic. And I know that a lot of people, I helped with evacuations on Saturday afternoon and, Saturday all day, because once I evacuated, I ran right over to the sheriff's station and was like, okay, now I'm online with the sheriff's department up at the Briggs Terrace area, which was one way in and one way out. And we're telling people from about 10:30 on, 11 o'clock on, get your stuff, get loaded, and get out. Mm-hmm. And then by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, people were going, the sheriff's department had to cut a hard line and say, that's it, you can't go back up.
Yeah.
And I remember a very distinct story with the guy telling me, says, Paul, he says, my kids are up there. And I said, Sam, I've seen you go up and down this hill 4 times loading your TVs and all your stuff. I said, but your kids are up there now and you left them up there? He says, yeah, I don't know. What can I do? I said, well, you better get on the phone and tell them to start walking down. Mm-hmm. So it's just amazing that, what people think is important. So, load up the kids first, right? Load up the dog, the pets. Be sure to get the wife, the husband, the better half. Get you all in the car. Then get your grab-and-go bags. Then go for your photo albums. And then go for all that stuff. So, because otherwise, you're going to get cut off guard and you're going to end up in a Red Cross shelter. And thank God you guys are there. Thank goodness, because it's like, a lot of folks in the Woolsey fire, on these wind-driven fires like the Saddleback Ridge fire and the Woolsey fire, traveled 26 miles in less than a day. Yeah, that's going to affect a lot of people. But remember, you guys all don't think it won't happen to you. Right? Well, we've seen those 700 or 800 or 900 people in those shelters going, what happened? Mm-hmm. So, and it's tough. And we reach out to them, and this is why I volunteer, and certainly why Jennifer's a professional, because, this is so meaningful to help those people at that really difficult time in their lives. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that's about all that we wanted to cover here. I remember notifications you can get in so many different ways from the Sheriff's Department, from the press releases. You can find out more about Red Cross. Don't you tell me about some of the Red Cross apps, Jen?
Yeah, so we have a few Red Cross apps. So in addition to having the information posted on our various social media accounts, you can also go to your app store on an iPhone or Google Play Store on a Samsung or Android phone, and you can look up American Red Cross, and a series of apps will pop up. And we have a lot. We have one for first aid. We also have ones for fires, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes. And there's also one that lists all of our shelter and evacuation centers that are across the country that are open at any given time. So if you download those apps, you can also use that as a resource to locate where the closest shelter is to you, where you can then go if you need to evacuate.
So, the Red Cross is going to be there for us always, as they always have been for years and years and years. And also, I think you said, let's be sure to check with our friends and our neighbors first and go there, right? Or go to a place that you can go, or your relatives, because you may not need to necessarily go to a shelter.
Yeah, if you do have friends, family, or relatives that are, close to you, that are not in the affected area of the disaster, we always recommend that you try and go and stay with them first, because obviously, you'll be more comfortable. These are people that because when you do go to a Red Cross shelter, it is going to be a large space, similar to, a high school gymnasium or something to that effect. And so you will be in a large room with a lot of other individuals. So if you are able to go, to a family, friend, or relative, we always recommend that. But if not, we will be there always for you as the American Red Cross.
Yeah, and these days with COVID-19, like during the Bobcat fire, you guys do sheltering by assigning people to a particular hotel's room. Is that correct?
Yeah, so during times of COVID, we're doing what we call non-congregate sheltering. And so basically we have created partnerships around the county with various different types of lodging, like hotels or motels. And if something does happen, like the Bobcat fire, we are working with those partners to get clients into their own hotel room where they can stay. So that way, they're isolated and social distancing from other people until we are able to, find an end to that disaster.
Okay, I think we just about covered everything. So this is our Fire Evac 2 talking about notifications and the Red Cross. Thanks, Jen, for all this insight and this help.
Of course.
All right, and bringing it all together for us. Come on back. This is the Emergency Preparedness Network. Right, we're going to keep you informed on what to do next time.